Happy Halloween and welcome to another 10 Days feature. This time starting on Halloween and extending the holiday deep into November. And this time focusing on Satan, the icon of everything evil and dark in the Abrahamic religions. One of the earliest satanic representations in film that can still be watched is Haxan, or The Witches, from 1922. A silent film that mixes documentary footage with a fictional narrative. The documentary parts of the film near the beginning give you an overview of witchcraft and the worship of the devil through a historical and mythological standpoint. But the film then goes on to present stories that show how the church fights against these witches throughout history, and winds up becoming somewhat ambiguous. There are two versions of the film as well. The original version is much longer due to the fact that it was a silent film and partly in a documentary format. It had a large amount of title cards to give the viewer the information needed. Later on, in the 1960s, the movie was recut with narration for the documentary part of the movie, but for the parts that tell a story, it retains the silent movie format with title cards. I rather like this change, as the thing that makes silent films so good is the correct balance of acting and title cards. Usually with the less cards that you see, the better, because they tend to break everything else up. Silent actors had to be very, very good at what they were doing, as they could not use their voices to convey any sort of emotion. They had to do everything with body language and expressions. But for narration, nobody wants to sit there watching title cards slowly go by to get the background for the story. The film's tone is heavily laden with irony, especially as it builds towards its climax. In the beginning, the existence of Satan and his worshippers and their evil influence on the world is taken as a statement of fact. But as you see the church resort to more and more cruel measures to implicate and convict women of satanic worship, you start to wonder if the film is making a case against Inquisition rather than for it. The film shows several characters that are undoubtedly satanic worshippers who summon the devil and literally kiss his ass. But later on, it posits the theory that these people had mental issues, and some of the women convicted and executed for witchcraft were innocent. They broke down and confessed under constant torture, which may have been a political tool to eliminate certain women. Haxan was largely the work of one man, Benjamin Christensen, who definitely was passionate about the project. He wrote and directed the film and even starred in it as Satan himself, one of the coolest on-screen representations of the character, who has witches kiss his ass and dance around a fire as he churns butter. It's a pretty explicit metaphor for masturbation, and it's shocking for such an old film. If I had to make one criticism for Haxan, it's that the film is deceptive, but as a film about a character depicted as the king of lies, it's not really a criticism, it's more of just an observation. The movie mixes factual history with fanciful interpretations, and if you go in knowing that, you're well armed. But it could possibly take you by surprise if you're not prepared for this. Also, I want to single out the recut for praise for the excellent narration by William S. Burroughs, who brings a dry, detached voice to the information, but still has an undercurrent of enjoying making the audience squirm. The original version of the film is scored with a symphony, while the recut uses jazz, and once again I have to say that I prefer the recut. Overall, anyone interested in the history of filmmaking should see this, as well as anyone who wants to be thoroughly creeped out, but also educated and given some food for thought. Haxan is an interesting, well-made film that I recommend, though it may be seen as bizarre and unbalanced due to jumping from story to story and having a documentary feel to it. I feel that today we have films like District 9 that do similar things, so why not? I give it a 9 out of 10.